More than 400 years ago, a man walked into battle knowing that losing meant death. He had no army behind him, no armor to protect him, and often no second chance. His name was Miyamoto Musashi. He fought over 60 life-or-death duels and never lost, not because he was the strongest, but because his mind was unshakable. While others panicked, Musashi stayed calm. While others chased glory, he trained in silence. And while the world around him was violent, chaotic, and uncertain, his inner world remained controlled. Today, we live in a different kind of battlefield. Constant noise, endless distraction, pressure to succeed, and a mind that never seems to rest. Yet the same discipline that kept Musashi alive still applies. If you feel mentally tired, overwhelmed, or easily disturbed by life, what you're lacking is not motivation, it's mental structure. The samurai didn't rely on hype or emotion. They relied on rules that trained the mind to remain clear under pressure. And once you understand those rules, ordinary problems stop feeling overwhelming. Miyamoto Musashi was not just a legendary swordsman. He was a philosopher who understood that victory begins long before the fight. Near the end of his life, he wrote a short but powerful text, outlining the principles he lived by, principles meant to strip the mind of weakness, attachment, and fear. This wasn't self-help. It was survival wisdom. Musashi believed that a disciplined mind could not be controlled by chaos, desire, or emotion. In this video, we are not chasing inspiration or quick confidence boosts. We are studying a system, a way of thinking designed to make a person calm, focused, and unbreakable from the inside. These samurai rules are uncomfortable, simple, and brutally honest, which is exactly why they work. As you listen, don't treat these ideas as history. Treat them as mental training, because the same discipline that allowed a lone samurai to walk calmly into death can teach you how to move through modern life without fear, distraction, or inner noise. Musashi's first rule sounds simple, almost passive, yet it is one of the most difficult disciplines ever practiced. Accept everything just the way it is. This does not mean liking what happens, nor does it mean surrendering your will. It means removing emotional resistance to reality. Musashi understood that the moment you argue with what is, your mind becomes divided. One part observes reality, while the other fights it. In battle, that split meant death. In life, it means confusion, stress, and constant mental exhaustion. The samurai trained themselves to see reality clearly, without complaint, judgment, or panic. When rain fell, it fell. When an enemy appeared, he appeared. There was no wasted energy on wishing things were different. Acceptance was not weakness, it was clarity. In modern life, most mental suffering comes from resistance. We resist delays, mistakes, rejection, criticism, and uncertainty. We tell ourselves stories about how things should have gone, and those stories keep the mind trapped in frustration. Musashi's discipline cuts through this entirely. When you accept the situation fully, your mind becomes quiet enough to act intelligently. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding deliberately. Acceptance gives you control because it removes shock. Nothing surprises you. Nothing overwhelms you. You see things as they are, not as your emotions paint them. This rule trains emotional stability. When you stop demanding that life obey your expectations, disappointment loses its power. Acceptance does not stop action. It improves Italiano. A calm mind makes better decisions. A clear mind adapts faster. Musashi survived not because the world was kind to him, but because he never wasted mental energy resisting reality. He trained himself to move with life instead of fighting it. In doing so, he became impossible to mentally break. Musashi warned against seeking pleasure for its own sake because he understood how comfort slowly weakens the mind. Pleasure feels harmless, even disobeyed. But when it becomes a goal, discipline dissolves. The samurai lived in a world where indulgence dulled awareness and delayed reaction could mean death. Musashi trained himself to be comfortable with discomfort. He slept little, lived simply, and avoided excess, not because pleasure was evil, but because dependence on it created weakness. When you rely on comfort to feel okay, you become fragile the moment comfort disappears. In the modern world, pleasure is constant and effortless. Endless entertainment, instant gratification. Emotional escapes, none of it requires effort. But the mind adapts quickly. What once felt satisfying soon becomes normal, then dull. To feel good again, you need more stimulation. This cycle slowly erodes patience, focus, and self-control. Musashi's discipline breaks this cycle by teaching restraint. He believed that a person who could deny themselves unnecessary pleasure was free. Free from impulse, free from addiction, free from being controlled by craving. This rule builds inner strength. When you stop chasing pleasure, you regain authority over your actions. You no longer act because you feel like it. You act because it aligns with your purpose. Discipline replaces impulse. Calm replaces restlessness. Musashi's life shows that true satisfaction comes from mastery, not indulgence. The disciplined mind does not avoid pleasure, forever it simply refuses to be ruled by it. When pleasure is controlled, it becomes a reward, not a dependency. That distinction is what separates a strong mind from a distracted one. Musashi taught never to rely on partial feelings, because emotions are incomplete information. Feelings rise and fall, based on hunger, fatigue, fear, pride, and countless unseen influences. To make decisions based solely on emotion is to surrender control to temporary states. In combat, hesitation born from fear or overconfidence, born from excitement, could end everything. Musashi trained himself to observe emotions without obeying them. He did not suppress feelings. He simply refused to let them lead. This discipline creates mental distance. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You observe the emotion as a signal, not a command. Anger does not mean action is required. Fear does not mean retreat is necessary. Excitement does not mean a decision is wise. By not trusting partial feelings, Musashi maintained clarity even in chaos. His mind stayed centered while others were carried away by impulse. In modern life, emotional decisions create regret. Messages sent in anger, promises made in excitement. Choices made under pressure. These are all examples of partial feelings and control. Musashi's rule teaches patience. When emotion arises, wait. Let it settle. Clarity follows calm. This does not make you cold. It makes you accurate. A disciplined mind feels fully, but acts selectively. Over time, this rule builds emotional resilience. You stop being controlled by mood swings. You become reliable under pressure. People trust those who remain steady when emotions run high. Musashi's mastery was not emotional absence, but emotional order. He knew that the strongest mind is not the loudest or most expressive. It is the one that remains clear when others are overwhelmed. Musashi advised thinking lightly of yourself and deeply of the world, a direct challenge to ego. Ego narrows perception. It keeps attention trapped inside the self, your image, your pride, your fears, your desires. Musashi understood that a self-obsessed mind misses reality. In combat, this meant missing the opponent's movement. In life, it means misunderstanding people and situations. By reducing concern for the self, awareness expands outward. This rule trains humility, not weakness. When you stop obsessing over how you appear, how you are judged, or how important you feel, mental noise fades. You see more clearly. You listen better. You learn faster. Musashi lived simply, often appearing rough and unimpressive, because his focus was not on image, but on understanding. He studied nature, timing, rhythm, and human behavior. His depth came from attention, not ego. In modern life, self-focus is constant. Social comparison, validation, and identity consume mental energy. This creates anxiety and insecurity. Musashi's discipline cuts through this by redirecting attention outward. When you study the world instead of defending your ego, life becomes less personal and more understandable. Criticism hurts less. Praise matters less. Growth accelerates. Thinking lightly of yourself frees you from self-importance. Thinking deeply of the world makes you perceptive and adaptable. This combination creates quiet confidence. You do not need to prove yourself. You simply act with understanding. Musashi's strength came from this balance: minimal ego, maximum awareness. Detachment from desire was central to Musashi's philosophy, because desire creates fear. When you desperately want something, you become afraid of losing it or failing to obtain it. Fear clouds judgment. Musashi believed that freedom came from wanting less, not more. This did not mean ambition was forbidden, it meant attachment was dangerous. He pursued mastery, not outcomes. In a life of constant battle, attachment could paralyze. Fear of death, loss of honor, or failure weakened the mind. By detaching from outcomes, Musashi stayed calm regardless of circumstances. He focused on execution, not results. His mindset allowed him to act decisively under pressure. In modern life, desire drives anxiety. We attach ourselves to success, approval, money, and identity. When those things feel threatened, stress rises. Musashi's rule teaches inner independence. When you detach, effort remains, but desperation disappears. You do your best without being consumed by the result. Detachment builds emotional stability. You are no longer controlled by outcomes beyond your control. Loss hurts less. Failure teaches more. Success does not inflate ego. The disciplined mind remains balanced. Musashi's calm came from knowing that nothing external defined him. That is the root of mental strength. Musashi warned against regret because it anchors the mind in the past. Reflection is useful. Regret is not. Regret consumes energy without producing change. The samurai believed every action carried a lesson, not a punishment. Once the lesson was learned, the moment was released. Carrying regret into the present weakened focus. In modern life, regret fuels anxiety and self-doubt. We replay mistakes, imagine alternate outcomes, and punish ourselves mentally. Musashi's discipline rejects this entirely. What is done cannot be undone. Only understanding remains useful. This mindset creates momentum. You move forward without emotional baggage. By refusing regret, you preserve mental energy. You become decisive. Fear of making mistakes fades because mistakes are no longer disasters, they are teachers. Musashi acted boldly because he trusted his ability to adapt, not his ability to be perfect. This rule builds confidence, rooted in resilience, not success. You stop defining yourself by past errors. The present becomes lighter. The future becomes less intimidating. A mind free of regret is a mind free to act. Musashi rejected jealousy because comparison distracts from mastery. Every person walks a different path, with different timing and conditions. Jealousy arises when attention leaves your own journey and fixates on another's progress. For a samurai, this was fatal. Destruction meant defeat. In modern life, jealousy thrives through constant comparison. Social media amplifies it. Musashi's rule restores focus. When you stop comparing, energy returns to your own growth. Progress accelerates. Jealousy also breeds resentment and insecurity. Musashi understood that these emotions weaken discipline. By focusing solely on his own improvement, he remained mentally clean. This created peace and consistency. Freedom from jealousy produces calm confidence. You are no longer racing others. You move at your own pace. Mastery becomes the goal, not validation. That mindset builds quiet strength. The final rule remaining common summarizes all the others. Calmness is not passive. It is controlled awareness. Musashi trained under harsh conditions to prepare his mind for disorder. When chaos arrived, it felt familiar. In modern life, chaos is mental rather than physical. Deadlines, noise, pressure, and uncertainty attack attention. A trained mind remains steady. Calm allows perception. Perception allows choice. This rule is the result of discipline, not talent. Calmness is trained through acceptance, restraint, detachment, and focus. Musashi's greatest victory was not over opponents, but over inner turmoil. A calm mind cannot be manipulated, rushed, or overwhelmed. That is the true meaning of an unbreakable mind. Miyamoto Musashi never taught these rules to make life easier. He taught them to make the mind stronger. A disciplined mind does not depend on comfort, praise, or perfect circumstances. It remains steady whether life is quiet or chaotic. What makes Musashi's philosophy timeless is that it does not promise happiness, offers clarity. And clarity is far more powerful. When you accept reality without resistance, control pleasure instead of chasing it, act without being ruled by emotion, and detach from outcomes, something subtle happens. The noise inside your head begins to fade. Problems stop feeling personal. Fear loses its grip. You are no longer constantly reacting, you are choosing. These samurai rules are not meant to be admired. They are meant to be practiced. You don't need a sword or a battlefield to apply them. Every moment of frustration is training. Every impulse resisted strengthens discipline. Every calm response under pressure builds mental authority. Musashi lived in an age where weakness was punished instantly. We live in an age where weakness is comfortable, but it still costs us focus, peace, and self-respect. The world has changed, but the human mind has not. If you take anything from this, let it be this: mental strength is built quietly. No one sees it forming, but everyone feels its presence. A calm person in a chaotic world carries an invisible advantage. So move through life with less attachment, less noise, and less fear. Train your mind like a samurai, not to fight others, but to master yourself.